Amazing. Hello, everyone, again. Professor Choe.
Hi.
It's really great to have you here. Can I call you Dr. J?
Yes.
Amazing. Cool. So thanks again for sticking around. So as I just alluded to in the last talk, we wanted to have a conversation about regenerative finance. And we were really humbled and really grateful for Dr. J agreeing to join us today. Dr. J is extremely accomplished, teaching at Ewha University. Is that, did I pronounce it correctly?
Well,
Ish.
close.
And previously at the National Seoul University. And before that, Dr. J received his PhD from Harvard University in the US. And so once again, we're really, really excited to have him here today. And maybe, yeah, just to start, is it worth maybe sharing a little bit more about your background, both as an educator, but then also in climate?
Okay. To begin with, to be very honest, I don't know why I'm here at the moment. I'm not really familiar with what you guys do. I'm trying to understand, listening to you and then previous speaker. But believe it or not, I've been writing congratulatory remarks for a number of books that's been published by the leading experts in this field in Korea. But let me confess myself that I really don't quite understand the detailed physical mechanisms of blockchain technology. So I came here to really learn what you guys do. But at the moment, I am also leading a group called Biodiversity Foundation, which was founded by myself and the famous Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall is coming in about a month to Korea on my invitation. Now, we are trying to mobilize people to save the world from this environmental degradation. But recently we were thinking, what if we could somehow, hold hands with these technology people? They seem to be doing something very interesting. Is there any way we can connect to each other? And that's why I'm here, to learn.
And we're grateful to have you here. And I think one of the topics that we wanted to talk about together is refi, regenerative finance. Which is a topic that I think is still relatively new in the broader crypto space, but it's an exciting topic, and it's one that I think actually presents an opportunity for us to, as you said, work together to tackle this, really big and ambitious problem. And so I guess yesterday was World Environment Day, and I wonder if maybe that's a good reason to remind everyone, why should we care? Why should we be thinking about climate change? Why should we be thinking about it even in the Web3 ecosystem?
Well, the environment is the one that envelope all of us, right? So environment collapses, we'll probably have to go with it anyway. I'm glad to see all of you most of you without masks right now, but we've been suffering for the last 3 years because of COVID-19. COVID-19, in my analysis, is the result of environmental destruction caused by mainly climate change and biodiversity loss. Now, I am a tropical biologist. I study animals in the tropical jungles all through my career. And I know for a fact that when you go to tropical jungles, you get to meet bats all the time. We described a little more than 1,400 species of bats in the world, but about 95% all live in tropical jungles. But in recent years, they've been moving into the temperate regions because of climate change. The temperature in the temperate region is going up, and so they find temperate region is livable as well. So they're moving into where we live. I'm not saying the human species only lives in temperate region, but we are most compact in temperate region anyway. What that means is the virus and bacteria that bats carry around has much easier probability to come to us now. And that's probably why this thing happened this time. Biodiversity as well, we have to be very concerned. Homo sapiens, our species, has been here for more than 250,000 years. But for the most part, almost 240,000 years, we were literally nothing. But in the past, about 10,000 years, we've been cultivating, we've been doing agriculture, and that's how we became dominant species on this planet. So during this COVID-19, we biologists got together and tried to calculate the importance of Homo sapiens in this Earth ecosystem. It was interesting when we calculated ecological dominance of Homo sapiens about 10,000 years ago. We were less than 10% in terms of biomass. But now, at this time, if we calculate that again, Homo sapiens, biomass of Homo sapiens, and the biomass of all the animals we raise, compared to all the mammals and birds living on this planet at the moment, we comprise of nearly 99%. So we were only 10,000 years ago, we were less than 1%. Now we're nearly 99%. So if you are a virus or bacteria living on the wild animals in the wood, chances are you will probably have to move because your life is getting miserable there. When you move nearly 99% of time, you will land on either Homo sapiens or Homo sapiens livestock. So what that means is just looking at probability, we're going to go through this kind of disasters more often, more and more, again and again. So environment is so important. It's a life and death situation for us. And if we can find some way to save it using blockchain technology, I'm not going to hesitate to jump in.
Yeah, wow. I've never actually heard that before, that pandemics now are going to be more frequent with climate change. And certainly, I think we can all agree that wearing more masks is probably something that we want to avoid going forward. And you mentioned fighting this with blockchains, and of course, there's a whole area now within Web3 that's formed, this burgeoning field called refi. Who here has heard of the term refi before in the audience, just so that we can kind of get a sense of the crowd? So maybe about 20, 30%. Have you heard of the term?
Well, yeah. I don't quite understand, but I heard.
Yeah, so maybe just for the rest of the folks in the audience, so refi stands for regenerative finance. You know, many people have different definitions of it, but one definition that I like is decentralized finance, where you have positive externalities baked into the protocol itself. And so you can create these new types of financial systems that can actually have a positive side effect on climate change, on pollution, on ecological diversity, even on community health. The term is starting to become quite broad. Increasingly, folks are talking about getting green pilled, which is, you know, when people get excited about this movement and kind of start digging in. So hopefully we can all green pill you a little bit today. The one reason why I'm up here today is because Celo has, you know, almost by accident become kind of the home of refi. You know, crypto has gotten, I think, historically a pretty bad rap when it comes to climate change, right? I think with proof of work networks, you know, they were very frequently using a lot of electricity that understandably made a lot of people skeptical about the impact that they would have on climate change. And so 3 years ago when the Celo network launched, there was a governance proposal that passed in the ecosystem that committed to, or that made it so that the Celo network would programmatically buy carbon offset credits and retire them using block rewards. And since then, the network has actually been fully carbon negative. Already, it doesn't use much electricity because it's a proof of stake network. But on top of that, we wanted to really plant a stake in the ground, show the world that crypto can actually be, have a positive effect on climate change. And since then, the protocol has, once again, you know, programmatically been buying carbon offset credits. And I think because of that fact, now a lot of these kind of new and exciting refi protocols have come to Celo, and so I have the joy of getting to learn about a lot of these, and in many cases, you know, help them out a little bit as they build out their protocols and think about the impact that they can have on the environment.
Well, I know that you guys are trying hard to reduce the consumption of electricity when you create coins and whatnot, but that's a negative side. But I have a question about the positive side. How would you really, to someone like myself, how would you explain the blockchain technology could be helpful in terms of stopping or slowing down the climate change, or even restoring our environmental ecosystem?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I guess I would say it can help in two ways, perhaps. So the first way is around organizing people to take on big and ambitious things. I think ultimately fighting climate change, I think we as humanity know what we need to do, right? We know we have to lower emissions, and we know that if we do that quickly enough, we can actually avoid the catastrophic effects. The hard part is actually executing that plan. And one of the amazing things about crypto is that it has historically been used to organize people to take on big and ambitious things. One, you know, maybe entertaining example of this is the Constitution DAO, right? The fact that in 1 week, a group of people could raise $47 million to try to buy a copy of the US Constitution in 1 week. That, to me, shows that these types of networks can be really good at spurring action, incentivizing people to participate in something really big and ambitious, and do something pretty big and exciting. So that's kind of the first, I would say, of the two ways. The second way is just around you know, the fact that with crypto, money is programmable. And when you make money programmable, you can create these systems that have these positive externalities. I mentioned how the Celo blockchain is buying carbon offset credits programmatically every day. Soon, it will also buy carbon offset credits using 20% of the transaction fee that you spend whenever you sign a transaction, whenever you submit a transaction to the network. We're calling this ultra green money. 80% will be burned to make Celo deflationary, and then 20% will go towards buying carbon offset credits programmatically and retiring them. And you can create these systems really easily now in smart contracts. And it's not just at the blockchain level, but there's protocols built on top of Celo that are doing similar things. And you can create these really nice systems that can actually have this positive impact.
That's really nice. I was listening to your talk, sitting there. Something caught me. You talked about Sylvie, tree planting, the idea, right? Now, I'm at the moment also working as a special envoy for UNFCCC. They're calling me Al Gore avatar. Al Gore is too expensive to to invite, so they're saying you're cheap, so we can just send it.
Don't sell yourself short.
So whenever they have a meeting someplace in the world, well, as long as I have time, they send me an air ticket, then I go and give a talk on how important climate change. But surprisingly, surprised to them, I guess, in a way, right from the beginning, I've been talking about biodiversity rather than climate change. It's because, in my opinion, climate change is very important, very serious, but I think biodiversity loss is going to be even more immediate threat to us. Temperature goes up, there are a lot of things will happen, but we have a technology of air conditioning and things like that. We may be able to escape to a certain extent, but then those plants and animals out there without that technology will start disappearing. We've been worrying when IPCC's been talking about stopping temperature rise up to 2 degrees Celsius. We've been worrying, and the biologists worried that goal is too big in a way, because when you have a 2 degree Celsius increase in world temperature, we worry that nearly half of biodiversity will disappear. When half of entire world biodiversity disappear, would human species survive? We don't think so. So we were trying to encourage people to come up with this agreement and whatnot. So we're trying very hard to reduce the level of temperature rise and all this, but then not many people are paying attention to biodiversity loss. And in my opinion, that's something you guys should now should look into. With climate change, maybe tackling the climate change may be easier compared to biodiversity issue, because you have a clear measure, emission level and whatnot. But for biodiversity, what do you have to do? Do we have to go and find out how many species are still surviving or whatnot? It's going to be very difficult in terms of measuring the change in a way. And I wonder, you talked about earlier to me that there are people in the world taking samples of soil and plants and whatnot, and cataloging that genetic material in a way. That's, in my opinion, very important thing. But how would, once again, blockchain, all this Web3 business could help that kind of activity?
Yeah, exactly. And so we were backstage earlier and we were chatting about Simplex DNA, which is a project that is actually doing exactly that. They're using a token economic system to incentivize people to go out into the world, go out into remote parts of the world to collect soil samples, to collect water samples, and then send those samples to labs so that they can be sequenced so that we can create a catalog of all of the DNA, all of the species that exist today on the planet. And they're doing it using, they're trying to do a big ambitious thing, and they're trying to get a lot of people to coordinate together to solve that big ambitious thing. And again, they see crypto as an amazing enabler to pull that off. And so it's really exciting to see them be working on this. And absolutely, I think it's really important. The tree planting protocols, I think, are also really interesting. And I know that Sylvie is also really thinking a lot about biodiversity. And, the founder of Sylvie actually had this really interesting statement. He said that, there's this goal that's frequently talked about, how if we were to plant 1 trillion trees, it would have a huge impact on climate change. And if you think about it, 1 trillion trees is actually not that many trees per person. It comes out to, planting, for example, 2 trees a year per person throughout your life. And when you break it down that way, suddenly it seems actually quite manageable. But how do you incentivize everyone to plant 2 trees a year? Especially if you're talking about everyone, you're talking about reaching people who may not have bank accounts, who may not have government-recognized IDs, right? Suddenly, crypto is actually a really appealing platform for trying to do something that big and ambitious. And I think it's 100% possible. And again, I think this is the kind of thing that is really made for Web3. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in the future.
I have I have a good news to share with you. One of the Korean K-pop companies called SM, the founder of SM, Mr. Lee Soo-man, is having quite laudable idea. He wants to mobilize K-pop fans worldwide to plant trees together. So he asked me to help out. So I'm going to go to that event sometime later this month to talk about how we could go about doing that. And I am quite excited because you think about the fans of K-pop, that's huge. And they all get
That's
together.
like the whole population of the world, right? That's everyone.
And so I asked Jane Goodall to help us out too. So Jane Goodall already made a small short recording and asking the young people to join this movement. So again, if we could use that blockchain technology to somehow keep records for individuals about as they plant trees, that would be something we could do. Wonderful.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You could imagine giving folks NFTs, giving folks tokens as an incentive, but also even just as a memento to remember the action that they took, and maybe even somehow tie it back to the individual tree itself. That's really cool. Huh.
But then, let me ask you some question that might be quite unsettling. As I understand this AI business, all this, the internet businesses, it seems in the last few years, something comes up, then everybody gets so excited. And then in a couple of years, that somehow slowly disappears from from everybody's talking, surrounding in a way. Technology like blockchain or Web3, are they really sustainable? Will they be around in 10 more years, 20 more years, 100 more years?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's an interesting question actually, because it's almost, if you think about these systems, it's almost a tautological question, because in a way they're designed to actually survive. So much work goes into thinking about how to make these systems resilient against everything so that they do survive, and so that when you do put something on the chain, when you do get an NFT for planting that tree, you have that record forever. And so I think absolutely, I think that's like part of what makes Web3 interesting, is the fact that so much thought goes into solving exactly that. And when it comes to developer interest, we're in a bear market, certainly, but I don't know about you, but every time I go to a crypto conference, especially the builder-focused ones, the amount of energy, the amount of people that I see, it's unlike anything that we've ever seen before. If you look at the metrics that folks like Electric Capital put out, year over year, we're still increasing number of developers that are coming into the ecosystem and contributing. So I'm really excited. I'm definitely very bullish.
Well, for that matter, I am quite mad at my own government, Korean government. We are a highly technological nation. We're probably, moving faster than any other countries. But then all of a sudden, Korean government is crashing down on this blockchain technology. I don't quite understand their logic. They're worried. I don't know. I understand they're worrying about some bad effects of this technology, but that's not the only part you guys are having, right? There are a lot of great things you can do using this technology.
Yeah, and I guess I could empathize certainly with the desire to limit the speculative parts of crypto, because I think it's certainly easy to see the negatives there, but what gets me excited about crypto is all of the incredible things that we're building that weren't possible before. We talked about protocols that plant trees. There's also protocols that incentivize the collection of plastics. There's stable coins that are actually being created that are backed in part by trees, so that you can have a positive effect on climate change simply by using one stable coin over another. We talked about protocols preserving biodiversity. There's so much exciting stuff happening. Even on the carbon offset credit side of things, there's a whole industry now that's tokenizing carbon offset credits and creating new mechanisms for effectively solving some of the issues with the voluntary carbon offset market that exists today. And we need to solve these issues, because if you look at the projections, McKinsey is projecting that the market will grow by 15x by the end of the decade, in 7 years. That's a crazy amount of demand for carbon offset credits that will land on our doorstep, and the current systems don't scale. They don't have enough price transparency. They don't have enough transparency as to what you're buying. There's issues with double spending or double retirement, which is something that crypto is really well versed at solving. And so there's all of these problems that crypto can solve that create real value to people today, and certainly to the environment tomorrow. And I think that's definitely what gets me excited about the space.
I'll remain optimistic because I study ants, and unlike most people believe, ant society is completely decentralized society. Queen doesn't have complete control over things going on in that society. Worker ants themselves somehow control everything in that society. And blockchain technology being the core concept of blockchain technology, as I understand, is decentralization, and that's where I have a hope you guys will somehow figure out what to do.
Wow, what a nice thing to end on. There you have it. Ant colonies are decentralized just like crypto. That's fascinating. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. It was
Thank
really
you.
a pleasure.
It's fun.
Yeah.